Hey everyone, today we're looking at Postman from HackTheBox. If you aren't aware, HackTheBox is a popular cybersecurity platform that allows you to practice your skills as well as learn from the different modules that they have. The idea of doing machines or boxes on HackTheBox is you get an IP address and you're supposed to enumerate the machine, get access to a user, and privilege escalate to an administrator or a root user and own the box. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing that we need to do to learn more about this box is run an NMap scan. The NMap scan that I'm running has options to perform version detection, run 4 threads simultaneously, scan all ports, and skip host discovery. The Nmap scan shows that this is a Linux box running 4 services. Port 22 running an SSH service, port 80 potentially serving a website as it's running Apache, port 6379 running Redis, and port 10,000 running a Webmin service. To verify whether port 80 is hosting a website, we can simply use a browser to navigate to the IP address. Going over the website, nothing seems particularly interesting. One of the other things that we could do is take a look at the source code for any clues, but there's nothing interesting there either, so let's go back to the Nmap scan results. We see that port 10,000 is running Webmin over HTTP, so we could try and navigate to its web page by specifying the service's port number. This gives us an error and suggests that we use the Postman hostname. For this to work, we need to add a line in our etc host file so that our system can properly recognize the hostname and associate it with the IP address. Once the file has been edited, we can go back to the browser and navigate to the URL. Here, we see a login portal that belongs to the Webmin service. We can try a standard username and password combination like admin and password, but that doesn't work. So let's shift gears a little bit and look at another port. The Redis service on 6379 seems particularly interesting. Redis originally started out as a caching database, but eventually became a primary database that a lot of different applications use. The best way to interact with Redis is to use the Redis CLI tool. We specify the IP address and connect to the Redis console. From here, we can run different commands like info or config get all to see if there's any interesting information. Since we can apparently write to the target system using the Redis console, what we might be able to do is send over our SSH keys and log into the system via SSH. We can use the SSH keygen command to generate a new pair of SSH keys. To make sure that the service on the target system recognizes the key, we can pad it with new line characters. We then use the Redis CLI command once again to send over the public key to the target system. Once we receive confirmation, let's go back to the Redis console and execute a command that will change the name of the file that we sent to authorized keys. The SSH service uses this file to authorize a login using the corresponding private key. From our system, we can now use our private key to log into the target system. We'll be using the username Redis and the appropriate IP address. We now have access to the box as the Redis user. We can verify this by running the WHOAMI or ID commands. We can also use this access to look around the different folders of the system and try and understand how to escalate our privileges. Looking at the home directory, we see that Matt is a user on this box whose account we might want to get access to. We can look at other directories like bin and etc to see if there's anything interesting. Taking a look at the opt folder, we find a backup private key. Let's try and use this to access the system as Matt. Let's copy this private key over and use a utility called ssh2john. This will generate a hash that can be read by John the Ripper, a popular hash cracking tool. Using John the Ripper and the rocku.txt word list, we can crack the private key and see that its passphrase is computer 2008. We should be able to use this private key and its passphrase to log in as Matt on the system. We enter the passphrase when it's prompted, but it doesn't let us log in. Upon checking the SSH configuration from our session as the Redis user, we see that Matt isn't allowed to log in via SSH. However, we can try and use the su command to switch to the Matt user using the same password that we found. We can now access Matt's home directory and we get our first flag user.txt. It's worth checking if the Webmin login portal that we found uses the same credentials as Matt. We can try the combination Matt and computer 2008 and it lets us log into the Webmin portal. Here, we can see a bunch of different stats about the system. Webmin is basically a web-based systems administration tool for Linux. One way to escalate privileges on this box is to use a tool called Metasploit. Using the command msf console, we get into the Metasploit console. From here, we can search for Webmin and find the particular exploit that we wish to use. Using the info command, we see that this module exploits an arbitrary command execution vulnerability, and we can see what parameters this module requires by using the options command. Let's set our password to computer 2008, SSL to true, and username to Matt. Running the exploit, we successfully connected the box as the root user. Now, the exploit doesn't really give us a proper shell, but we can use Python's pty package to spawn a bash shell. From here, we can access the root directory for our final flag. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one.